At the Capitol and in a special place. We're in Minority Leader Danny Morgan's office today. And Danny, you have some special guests that are traveling with you.
We do. It's always a pleasure to see the kids come to the State Capitol building, whether they're FFA or 4-H. But I have a real special group with me today who earned their way to the Capitol. They are part of the Accelerated Reader Program recipients in the Meeker 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. They earned their way to the Capitol based on the AR points that they accumulated. They followed me here for a few minutes. We've watched some debate on the floor and taken a few votes in the chamber, and I'm excited to have them with me here today. And so I thought this would be a great educational opportunity for all of us to be part of this.
And I'll tell you, when you can stand around somebody's office, you can really tell a lot about what they care about. And the biggest thing in this office is family. You come from a lineage of legislators talking about earning their way up here. You're one of those.
Well, I've learned a long time ago to be successful, you got to have a great family around you. And mine was very supportive when I embarked on this opportunity to ask the voters of my district to send me to the Capitol and represent them. And I'm honored to have had that support from them and my family.
In talking about success and talking about tenacity to get success, this week the big bill really and the big compromise that's going on that we've all heard about is tort reform. Let's talk a little bit about Danny, and about what it means for all of us.
Well, this is an issue that has been prevalent at every campaign that we've heard. The Republicans have one version of the tort changes they'd like to see made in Oklahoma. The Democrats have a version that they'd like to see us work with. The governor has always committed that he would sign a piece of legislation that didn't have what we used to call the old poison pills. There may be 4 or 5 things really good in it, but one really bad thing that one side or the other couldn't agree to or be comfortable with. So after about 7 years of hard work, we really have a compromise bill that's being voted on today and will be passed by the House and sent immediately to the Senate. And the governor has indicated that he'll sign this piece of legislation. And that's the way this system works. It doesn't always happen in the first year or the second year. Again, this has been a long trail that we've walked, but we've gotten closer every year, and this year was one of those special times when we were able to put it all together.
Well, and that just goes to show that it really does take tenacity for your ideas to come to fruition up at the Capitol, because there are so many people with so many different viewpoints, and it's affecting all of the people, so it has to be molded to help the most people. Talk a little bit about what's in this bill and what's going to make it effective.
Well, one of the things is everybody's talked about capping the damages that can be awarded in particular lawsuits if you're found negligent and you're liable for damages provided by somebody. But this also has some provisions that says if it's an egregious situation, if you can really show some extenuating circumstances, then that cap can be removed. And so it protects both sides. For just the standard lawsuit, it gives a cap of protection. But if there's really some seriousness about it, significance to it, then they can remove that cap through the judge's order and the jury's award. It also allows some protection from our doctors. There's been a lot of concern about medical professionals in Oklahoma saying they've had to leave Oklahoma based on their insurance premiums, and so we're hoping this will allow those doctors, particularly those in the pediatrics and the geriatric ends, both ends of our scale, to be able to stay, and really to help that family practitioner stay out in our rural communities. That's where we're really trying to target these doctors to say, hey, we have to have you here in rural Oklahoma. It also helps the widow and widowers. There were some sections in law there that talked about if you had remarried after the loss of a spouse and someone was found negligent for the death of that spouse, that once you married, that could no longer be part of the scenario. And so I had some reservations about several of those type issues. Those have all been taken out of the bill. So I think you're going to find a well-rounded compromise where both sides didn't get what they all wanted, but we got a lot of what everybody did want.
Well, and something that was interesting, talking about well-rounded and compromises that have to take place, is, of course, we're in the middle of budgets, and this year's budget has been extra difficult to navigate with all the stimulus money coming in, but also those budget talks are confidential. Talk a little bit about why the need of confidentiality in order to be able to make proper compromises for everyone.
Well, the reason for the confidentiality of it is that you're a lot freer to speak and talk about the real issues. Each of the parties that are involved in the budget negotiations has a certain area they want to protect, whether it be education for some, Department of Corrections, Department of Mental Health, roads and highways, keep the bridge money coming to us. And so the reason that we keep that confidential is that everybody can go in, say we've had meetings, we've talked about it, but if it begins to leak out what some of the things are being talked about, then external pressures start to be placed on those negotiators, and it makes it difficult to negotiate when things are being leaked out. And these are potentially just ideas. Nothing's been agreed to yet. And so this just says until the final draft and agreements have been made, that's when the membership will all be informed of it. Then the debate and the discussions can happen as to whether that's the right way or the wrong way to go. But to enable to get those negotiators at the table and to be able to talk and really work through this, they have to be free from external pressures.
And we must remember, as citizens, those negotiators at the table are who we elected. And you guys are always open to hear from your constituents. So if we have concerns, Danny, we should be voicing them to you.
And I've got a great group of constituents, and I hear from them very regularly, whether they're the public employees talking about health care costs or the fact that they hadn't had an increase in their wage base in several years, educators who are talking to us about their health care needs and making sure that we take care of the retirement funding for the retired teachers, or the road and bridge contractors saying we need more money to make sure our bridges are there. So our constituents, at least in my district, have done a very good job of articulating the issues that are important to them and the areas that they'd like to see funded for those Oklahoma dollars.
And then, as I understand it, Danny, that's what you take to the table of the negotiations. You take to the table what your constituents want you to go in with.
That is exactly what we do. And again, that's why we want to keep those confidential in those discussions, because I may not win my argument for the side that I'm trying to advocate for, but I want to at least be in there and talk about it so that we know that those issues have all been discussed. When the agreement's reached and we come out and unveil the bill, we can say this was the best compromise we could come up with in the areas.
Well, and how about those constituents that have shared with you what they'd like to see when it's all said and done and the budget comes out, no more confidentiality? Is it okay for them to call you and talk to you about, hey, Danny, how did this go or how did that go?
Yes, and I think it's very important that they do that, because it also gives me an opportunity to respond back to them to say this is why we did what we did.
As always, Representative Danny Morgan welcomes everyone into his office. We appreciate you, Danny, for stopping by mylegislator.tv.